in the first video that you will have seen of Lofty, they were his first few rides from May into June. And this video is kind of from the end of June into August. So hopefully you'll see how much he has been progressing. So just the walk here itself, there's a lot more of a march going on when we start with him. And I mean, he's looking extremely well, bless him. There he goes again. So we've kind of got a few less trips of the front end now and a few more trips of the hind end. So we're working on finding that balance now of getting everything working at the same time, which is still quite hard. Because Lofty is still a big horse who is still trying to engage that brain into the body, and we're still working on unlocking a lot of that tightness in him whilst on the saddle. But see, we're actually now moving a little bit more forward than what we were. The head is still a bit unlevel, but when he starts, he does actually carry himself quite well, but it's not consistent. He's kind of at the stage now where he is working the back end a lot more, hence why you will sometimes see a bit of that weakness still coming in the back end, because he is finally just trying to use himself a little bit better. Now there, I've just swapped my whip into the inside hand. I'm terrible. I always carry my whip in the outside hand. I'm useless with my left hand. But he's constantly falling through, and I need to kind of start getting a little bit more bend happening now through the body. So what I've done is I'm just having that stick sometimes on the shoulder, just to give him a tap on the shoulder and basically just say, look, hello, listen, this is where I kind of need to place you a little bit more now. There we go. I'm just tapping and saying, look, going around a bend, please bend, just, through this shoulder, help me out a little bit here. Because he is a big horse to try and kind of get around a corner. And we're just going into the canter, and again I'm just trying to use that stick on the inside shoulder and just keep tapping away. There we go, look, come on, off we go, round the bend. And bless him, he does try. He's trying so hard to carry himself. He's really working hard with this, which is great. If we could get just a little bit more consistency, but he is a long-term project. He is only 5. So steering can sometimes still be a little bit of an issue with Lofty, as there we go, there's a fence. But listen, we're not going to punish him. He does need to kind of work things out for himself a little bit more. And I have got to kind of try and be about 10 steps in front of where we actually need to be at that time. But lovely trot work down here. He's really starting to come together now. Yeah, bending round corners are a little bit harder. Going into canter, though, is getting a lot easier. He is now getting more balanced, and kind of, you go from one rein gets better, the other rein gets a little bit worse, one rein gets, and you have to just keep swapping and changing with him. You can see there I've got a lot more bend on this right rein than I had on the left rein. And then it's just a case of working a little bit harder on the other rein, and then we might have to go back to and it's just as and when and what he needs from us, really. But even the downward transitions, he's not completely falling in a heap as much as he was anymore. We're able to kind of keep him going a little bit more forward, and it's just trying to keep him listening to me the whole time, which can be quite hard, because he just starts to switch off sometimes, and he's like, oh, I found that a little bit tricky, so I'm just not going to put any effort in now. And then we've got to find the balance of, well, are you too tired to carry on with this, or can we just push a little bit further? Because really chuffed with how the trot work has come along there, and actually the canter as well. But again, just coming back down to walk, instead of just letting him slop and completely fall in a heap, I need to keep him moving and just keep him going a little bit more. Otherwise, we're never ever going to get in his head that he's got to have that forward going. So the walk there, again, is improving all the time with him. and his concentration doesn't last very well, but he copes with the horses in the fields around him and things like that. He does sometimes find that banner very scary. But he's really starting to walk a little bit, you know, there was a little jump going into the trot there. So it's all finally starting to come together. The back end is definitely getting stronger. He's starting to get a bend through the hock instead of having completely straight legs. He's also moving less like a crab, and you can see the head and the neck, it's kind of getting lower. So it also makes it hard then, because we are getting quite lower through the head and the neck, which means that he's going a bit more onto the forehand. But it's just nice that he's moving forward. But equally, I've still got to kind of try and keep him working from behind. And as I say, it is hard work, especially with the size of Lofty. But you can see we actually as well have a little bit more where we can go across the school without hitting the fence this time. And he's just coming into himself. We're kind of getting the snippets now of what he can be long term. And again, you know, if you look back on how far he's come, it's really quite good. And what we're introducing now is we're trying to kind of, we've kept it originally really long, just around the school, but we're now starting to do some circles. And, you know, I'm not expecting it to be perfect. I don't really care how big this circle is, whether it's a kind of circle that starts at one end and finishes about 3/4 way up the other, as long as we can just start turning across the school. Again, going into the canter, he's quite tricky, because as he's kind of getting used to it, the canter is getting a little bit slower. So I'm still having to try and push him forward, but he's trying to work that back end a little bit more, which is great. And we don't want to stop him from doing that, but I don't want to make it too hard for him. So we've still got to just keep pushing and keep driving and just trying to get him to just run a little bit more in the canter, rather than try and hold himself too collectively, because he's not ready for it yet. He really isn't. And it's great that he's kind of starting to feel that good about it. But for now, we still want him to be more of a racehorse, forward thinking, forward going, which he actually wasn't when we first started with him whatsoever. But even on the left rein now, you can see the bend is just getting so much better. I have to make a little bit more of an effort about it. But I've got my stick back in my favourite right hand, so I'm going around the corners. But he is, you know, we're trying, and we're even starting to canter circles now in the school. It takes a little bit, you can see I have to really concentrate on the steering, and sometimes it just all breaks down a little bit. But nice trot, he's really stretching, he's moving well. He's coming on so much. So Lofty also does some work on the round gallop. You can see his little ears pricked, he loves it. When we first started with him though, he couldn't even canter around here. He was so stiff and rigid, and I just couldn't get him to lengthen out. He would just skip round, is probably the best way to say it. Skip round like a crab. But now you can see that, you know, the deck's quite long there, and I'm just letting him lob away, because this is what we want him to do. We don't want it all to be constant schoolwork with him. We want him to have a nice good blast, and there we go, we're out for a little hack. We've tried to keep the retraining quite a variety for him and introduce him to new things. He really is very good out on the roads. He will have a look at a few stuff, but you know, he goes. His confidence is getting better all the time, and it's nice for him to see these other things. And again, he works himself, well, I don't know whether he works himself or we work ourselves harder in the school when we ride him, but just to have him come out and relax and allow him just to, you know, stretch the neck naturally and just enjoy it and walk off. So it's very important that he has all of this variety at the moment. And it's helped all his schoolwork. Absolutely chuffed with how much he's come on. Really, really pleased with him.